Hello everyone, there's Skybound here, and the new expansion for Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker has finally been announced. Now I know a lot of you are very excited and very impatient to know exactly what was announced, so let's go over a quick rundown about what they talked about during this announcement. First and foremost, unfortunately this expansion was delayed due to the outbreak, so it will be delayed until fall of 2021. But that is it for bad news. The next news is where it takes place. We're going to be going to Thavnair, Garlemald, and the Moon. Next, they also revealed two new classes, a healer and a melee DPS. The healer was revealed as Sage, and Yoshi P wore a shirt that probably gives us some hint to what the DPS was. They also teased a huge gold saucer update with some sort of big minigame that, as they called it, rivals Mahjong. It's suspected it may be blitzball. They announced a new minigame type feature called Island Sanctuary that is referred to as a kind of slow life, farming, raising animals thing, kind of like Harvest Moon. And they have finally announced that the new housing zone will be Ishgard. Finally, after all these years, we will have Ishgard as a residential housing zone for players. Another big game feature is that they are removing belts from our equipment, but they are giving us the armory space for other equipment. And finally, one of the biggest things about Endwalker is that it will end the story with Hydaelyn and Zodiark. So we will have a full, complete end to that story that started with 1.0 at 6.0. But 6.1 will start a brand new story. Now that's about all the major features they announced. There's a lot of things they did not cover that we might get that we don't know about. There's that new DPS that we still don't know. We only have a skeleton on Yoshi P's shirt to think about, to figure it out. But there is potentially a lot more stuff coming. We have a new fan festival coming up that's going to be digital, and that's where we're going to get all the other information about the expansion. Now, with the fan festival being at the middle of May, that really does show how far delayed the game is. But at least we have some stuff to look forward to when the fan festival hits, because there's going to probably be some big information they're going to reveal then that will really get the crowds going. Now, one of the first big important things about this expansion is where it's going to take place. We're going to go to Thavnair, where a lot of our outfits actually have been designed based on. We're going to go to Garlemald, so we're going to fight the Garlean Empire or whatever residual we're going to deal with over there at the location. So that's finally happening. And then we're going to the Moon, which I thought was going to happen at 7.0 like Yoshi P always joked about, but we get it early apparently. So right now we get three big locations that are either noted in game or noted in Final Fantasy lore to the point that all the people have been clamoring for it. So people have really wanted this stuff and we finally get it. So that's going to be really exciting. Another major announcement about Endwalker is the new healer class Sage. They use a sort of orbital magic wand combo of 4 magic wands on their backs. They basically orbitally swing around them to cast spells. They are a barrier healer similar to Scholar, and they've even changed healers a bit. So now we have healers divided between raw healers and barrier healers. Now I think they're basically going to redo Astrologian to be more of a raw healer, kind of like White Mage, so it's probably going to lose some of its functionality. But they're making that big divide between the types of them, kind of like how range and melee DPS are different. Now, one thing I took from this announcement is that they made a really big deal about the whole Gold Saucer update. They're just saying there's this really big minigame with a lot of multiplayer elements and all this fun to it. It's big as Mahjong, which they basically had to shove into the game raw and all this kind of complicated nature that they almost didn't do it. So even though a lot of people don't like Mahjong, it was very technical and very complicated. So they're saying a lot about this new big minigame. Now, a lot of the hinting basically shows that it's probably going to be something like blitzball or snowboarding or something along those lines, of something crazy and big like that. But the big synopsis is that it's probably blitzball. It's something we've all been waiting for. We want a big multiplayer competition kind of thing to it and make it really fun. And we don't know how they would do it, but blitzball is something everyone's been wanting, and that would be probably something that they would actually treat this big. Now, another interesting minigame style feature they announced was this Island Sanctuary bit. It's some sort of slow life minigame kind of thing that was like farming and raising animals, Harvest Moon style, just simple, easy fun. So I think it's something to appeal to the more casual nature of people that want something just relaxing and simple and just a little bit of fun to do. One other feature they really didn't cover too heavily because there's really not to cover a lot. They kind of did it later, so it's kind of weird because I know that people have been going crazy about it for years, and that's the new housing zone in Ishgard. We had the whole Ishgard restoration, and we thought that was going to lead to the housing, and guess what? That's right. They are finally doing that. They have been talking about that since I think what, like 2.0, something like that? So we've been talking about it a long time, but now we're finally going to get Ishgard. I'm guessing there's a lot of players that are going to be very pleased with finally getting Ishgard, and a lot of free companies considering where to change their free company housing. Now, one odd feature about this announcement was that the new expansion will have a feature where they just simply remove the belts. Belts have no place in the game because they're an accessory that gives stats, but there's really no point to it because you can't see it, it really doesn't do much, it's kind of pointless. And it does take up armory space, but we're going to get that armory space back for other equipment like weapons or rings or something. Now, the big announcement about this expansion is that it is the conclusion of the story that we currently know. That is the major story that's been going on since 1.0, but it will be ending with 6.0. But that's not the end of the game, just the end of the first major arc. So this will be the conclusion of the story about Hydaelyn and Zodiark that will finally come to a complete closure. And then after the expansion, when they start doing the new setup for the new expansions coming 2 years later and everything else, with 6.1, a brand new story that we have no clue about will finally start off. Now, one other thing to know about this is that what that means is when you get the expansion, when you beat the expansion, without having to wait for other patches, it will be the complete and total end of the story. You will basically get to see the end. You won't have to wait to see next time. 6.1 is when the new story starts, so 6.0, the expansion itself, will give you full closure, so you want to wait anytime at all as soon as you pick it up. Now, there were some other things that were also announced during this that aren't as big or in development or other things, but I basically kept them as additional announcements that I'll talk about right now. First off is a new small-scale PvP mode. They haven't really talked a lot about it, but they're also trying new reward types other than just equipment for it. Another thing is Anima. People have been wanting Anima to come and show up in Final Fantasy XIV because it's a very popular design from Final Fantasy X, and the original creator is actually part of the Final Fantasy XIV design team and has recreated Anima for Final Fantasy XIV. We also have a little bit of information on the next 8-man raid that will be coming with Endwalker, and that is Pandemonium. Now, what we do know is there's an 8-man raid, and it will probably be based around La Habrea, based on the design of it. So, we don't know much about it, but we do know it has something to do with La Habrea, and it's called Pandemonium. That's about it so far. One little tidbit of information on Endwalker they did share with us as well was also the new beast tribes. One beast tribe will be the Matanga. That will be an elephant beast tribe, and we don't have much other information on that, just their name and appearance. There's also a little bit of technical change that will happen with Endwalker that you will notice, but it really won't affect gameplay. That is, they're going to change a lot of the values. Damage, experience, etc. has gotten gigantic, and those really large numbers have trouble with calculations sometimes due to the number of digits, and they're going to reduce them. It's not going to make you any weaker or any different. It's just going to be a smaller number count. Now, one thing in these additional announcements is probably more important, but I kind of put it back here because it's still in development and we don't know if it will be with Endwalker or not, or maybe beforehand, maybe afterwards, and that's the data center travel feature. This will be a feature that will allow you to travel to servers in other data clusters, so we don't know exactly how it's going to happen. They said it's going to be a little different, but it will still mean that you can play with your friends that are even on different data clusters. Now, something that Square Enix made a very big point about is that the PlayStation 5 version of Final Fantasy XIV will be entering beta in April, and that if you have the PlayStation 4 version of Final Fantasy XIV, you will be able to upgrade to the PlayStation 5 version of Final Fantasy XIV for free. Now, a final additional announcement I'd like to go over is that they have 8-man mounts now, so there will be 8 people that will be able to take the same mount now. The first one of this will be the Lunar Whale that will be available with a code if you pay for the fan festival that will happen in May. Now, this is tied to Final Fantasy IV, where you actually go to the moon using the Lunar Whale, so it's based on that design. It has its own music based on that as well, so it very much ties into the theme of going to the moon with Final Fantasy XIV, and will be a very unique mount to have. So now that we've covered what has been announced, let's talk about the things that wasn't quite revealed with this big announcement on the expansion. Now, first off, we know what there's going to be with the classes. We know there's a healer and a melee DPS, but we don't know what it is yet. But Yoshi P usually wears a shirt that basically tells us kind of an idea of what it might be. Now his shirt has a lot going on. The big prominent thing is that there is a skeletal figure in it. So we think maybe it's a scythe class or some sort of weird melee necromancer, or heck, even a pirate. A lot of these things are based on songs and other things with words like pistols and shots, and it's just weird with a lot of his shirts. You don't know how far-fetched he's going or whether he's trying to mislead you a little, so it could be almost anything there. But the big speculation is maybe it's a scythe class, because we don't have a scythe weapon yet, but it could be a weird hybrid that just basically is a melee class with some sort of range that could also do bursts and keep combos up while it's basically forced to go away from the boss or something. Another thing that wasn't revealed was whether or not we'll finally get male Viera and female Hrothgar. There's been no word on it yet, but during May, we're going to have that big fan festival, and there's going to be a big announcement there for sure, because they really want to get people excited. They want to talk about these things. They want to present these things. They want to get people wild and crazy and thinking about the expansion. And what better way than to finally filling the gaps in the races and the genders and such. Now, while they have announced that we will be getting the game in fall of 2021, we still don't have a concrete date. We don't have a date, we don't have a month, we don't know when that will be. Will it be closer to summer? Will it be closer to winter? How far in the year will it be? We still don't know yet. This outbreak has pushed back this development quite a bit, to the point that I don't even know where it's at. I suspected that they may still be able to pull off this whole thing by summer, but apparently that's not the case. Apparently development was hit a lot harder than I thought it was, so we don't know when this will be, and we will have to wait for the May Fan Festival to have any clue on what date this will actually release on. So regardless of what wasn't revealed, we should understand that in May we'll probably have a big reveal of that. We'll probably have a lot of stuff with the Fan Festival. They're probably going to have a lot of announcements and reveals to get us excited for the expansion as we get closer to it, because we're still unfortunately quite a far bit away, but as we get closer they will reveal the dates. We'll learn if there's anything to do with male Viera and female Hrothgar, and we'll probably learn what that second class is finally. Well, that about wraps up my update on the Final Fantasy XIV announcement for Endwalker, so I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you liked it, make sure you leave a comment, subscribe, like, whatever, I don't really care. Just do something. Show me that you're actually there paying attention and listening, so that I feel more obligated to make more of these videos for you guys. And share some of your thoughts about it. We have a new expansion here. I'd love to hear about what everyone else is excited about. But in any case, as always, this is Dare Skybound, signing out.